Very good morning to everyone. Hope your weekends have been great. Thank you all for joining our panel as to the audience, and thank you to the speakers on this panel for your time. So welcome to the collaborative efforts in greening the transport and logistics sector panel, where we have three esteemed experts and from three different industries here with us today to share their insights, basically on how the financial industry such as insurance, corporates from the transport and logistics sector, and technology enablers can actually work together to smoothen and enhance the transitions of brown business operations in the transport and logistics sector to darker shades of green. So with us today, we have Mr. Lim Kean, CK, who is the chairman and co-founder of CO2 Connect Private Limited. We have Ricky Lu, the CEO of CWT Integrated Group, and Pan JingLong, who is the head of general insurance of Aviva Singlife. I am Jeanette, business strategist at STACS, focused on spearheading ESG and sustainability efforts with blockchain and other technologies. And I'll be moderating this panel today. Before we begin, may I invite each speaker to give the audience a short 1 to 2 minute background introductions of yourself. Maybe we can start with CK.
Yeah, hi. My name is CK Lim. I've been the CEO of no longer a startup, Essence Solution, as well as Borderless Hub, a wholly owned subsidiary of Essence. Is a business that we've actually started about 11 years ago. And CO2 is the latest of the venture, where we've gotten, STACS together with Evercom as a joint venture partner. And I'm glad that I'm here at this conference today. Thank you, everyone. Ricky, over to you.
Hi, I'm Ricky. I'm the current CEO for CWT Integrated Group itself. So basically, CWT itself, we have various forms of logistics services throughout the world, from freight logistics to commodity logistics to the integrated logistics that I manage itself. So at the same time, I'm very much involved in the industry. I'm also the deputy president for Container Depot and Logistics Association. And CDAS itself been doing quite a bit of technology initiative for the whole industry for quite some time, as far back as 2007. And on another role, I'm also the current chairman for Logistics Technical Committee, Singapore Standard Council, where we write Singapore standards and to help everyone in the industry to standardize certain protocol in the transport and logistics itself. Thank you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is JingLong Pan. I've been in the insurance industry for more than 20 years. And so most of the time is on the general insurance side, working in different countries, markets, US and Asia. And then now I'm with Aviva. So Aviva, by the way, it's the first digital insurance company in Singapore. So more than 10 years operating here. So very happy to be here, joining the panelists as well as the moderator. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your introductions. So with that, we can formally kickstart today's panel session. So the main objective of why we put this panel together is really to understand how each of you, Aviva Singlife, CWT, as well as CO2 Connect, are actually working together to really enhance the sustainability scene in the transport and logistics sector. I would like to invite CK to introduce a little bit more about CO2 in a bit, but first, since this panel is focused on the transport and logistics sector, I'd like to share some statistics with the audience on our current standing in terms of carbon emissions. So according to the National Climate Change Secretariat 2018's emissions profile, the transport and logistics sector is actually the third largest carbon emitter in the nation, accounting for 14.8% of total primary and secondary emissions. So to each of the speakers here, maybe you can share with us, shed some light on what does sustainability mean to each of you. For instance, as a technology enabler for CK, an insurer for JingLong, and a corporate for Ricky. And also share with us, some of the obstacles that you see in today's situation that really prevents proper green transitions in this sector.
Sure. I think I'll start first. Yeah. So
sure.
I just had a conversation with Ricky, and Vicky correctly mentioned, right, the fact that actually sustainability, the whole concept of being green, is pretty new to everybody. And given that, it is even worse in the supply chain and transportation industry. I think, if I'm a SME, transport company, it's very hard for me to understand what the whole concept means to me and how it relates to me. What you just cited, right, to say is that it is the third largest carbon emitter. It emits almost 15% of our CO2 into the environment. But what does that mean for me? I'm a fleet owner. I own 100 trucks. My drivers are driving the same every day. So what has it got to do with me? I think this has been a very big question. And to make things worse, I think the whole entire so-called awareness of sustainability and going green, with this whole the global push for, even in all the recent summits, you can see how world leaders were being forced, to commit some form of carbon reduction. I think you can see that there are huge amount of pressure coming from all fronts. But being a company owner, being a business owner, if I don't even have an awareness of what that means and how that relates, how am I going to do my part to contribute? So I think what we've done as CO2, which we will elaborate later on a bit more, is to now help SME come up with what we call a carbon footprint strategy. A strategy where you cannot understand, okay, fine, I have 100 fleet. Are they all emitting equally? Or are some drivers driving worse than the others? Is there a way to calculate that? What does it mean when I receive a tender from a big MNCs that says that my fleet has got to be carbon neutral? All right, so those aspects that the CO2 is hoping to address. And I believe that on that front, Ricky can throw a lot more light, given the fact that he's been a veteran and the longest serving CEO of the logistics and supply chain industry. Yeah, over to you.
So, like the word says, sustainability. Can we continue to do the way we do in the long run? So the fuel is going to be there forever, or what we intend to do. So as a corporate level, it's about looking forward. It's about the future. It's about doing things what we're supposed to do, or we can, in short, is responsibility. As a big player, logistic player like us, I think very important, like responsibility is very important. In terms of sustainability, can we still continue the way we do business in times to come, or should we be doing something else that will make things better for everyone? And all must agree with me, we only just have one earth that we are all in. So if we were to damage this earth per se, where are we? So critically at our end, at the corporate end, at CWT, so we've been talking about ESG for some time. We've been evolving even before the industry evolved, from system enabling to help everyone into the mindset changes and all that. I think it's very important on mindset itself. And like I just shared with CK earlier, is that the worst part is that we are in logistics. There's not many books written on logistics. So many of us do not know what is logistics. And worst case is container logistics itself. So there's not many literature or anything written on container logistics. So many people are quite gray about what actually logistics is about. And to make matter worse, or I can say that, is that for logistics itself, you don't work alone. You don't work silo. We have an ecosystem. We have many stakeholders. So for argument's sake, for just delivering a parcel from one end to the other end, you will have to hit several different stakeholders. So what, you are very into sustainability. You understand your carbon footprint. You understand how you be doing things. But then the other end, the receiving end, may not think that way. So a lot of time is very great push on education and also corporate responsibility to ensure that this thing can carry on and really move forward. So, yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks. I think from the insurance perspective, I suppose, I mean, insurance, we all know it's a risk transfer business, and then and also we know it's a long tail business. So essentially, it's a promise that we gave back to consumers, and then not just in a year, in 20 years, 30 years. So sustainability, it's something that in our DNA, I suppose, in terms of managing things in the long run. And in order to do that, insurance company has always been trying to find ways to involving ourselves in line with the changes. The consumer changes or different changes, therefore going to change in the risk profiles. I think from sustainability finance or sustainability insurance perspective, I suppose it's the same thing. It's something we have been looking very seriously. How can we use technologies, onboarding to finding the new data, to understanding the changes, especially taking into account now the social elements, the environmental elements, the economic elements of that. So I think the challenge perspective, I suppose one thing, the other two panelists sort of mentioned the mindset. So everybody's need to be aware. I think the other perspective, from our perspective, is a new thing. So every time when we're developing a new product, a new solutions, it's clearly they're going to take time. So there's a learning curve for us to first to go through it. But I think the positive side is everybody's taking very seriously, not just from the corporate level. I think there's a national agenda in this one as well. I mean, Aviva, Singlife, we have a very dedicated resources function to specifically looking after these pieces, make sure we are driving the whole thing forward. So I suppose for us, it's a very, very important piece of our business, and then we're finding ways, and we already started with everybody else to finding ways to incorporate that into our day-to-day operations as part of our KPIs, as part of our business performance management, if you may. So despite the challenges, I think we're very excited to get things moving with everybody here as well. So yeah, that'll be my take on that. Thank you.
Thank you for all your opinions. I think those are really, really good opinions. We can dive into each of your sharings a little bit later. But before that, I'd like to invite CK to, actually tell us more about CO2 Connect. I understand that CO2 Connect is a rather new initiative, but it's actually gained quite a lot of traction in less than a couple of months since its incorporation. And I do understand also that CO2 Connect is currently running a pilot with an ecosystem of members across various corporates within the sector, your financial institutions, and other reputable organizations. So maybe I can have you to kind of dive deeper into what exactly is CO2 Connect, what is its main aim, why the transport and logistics sector first, and what are some of its mid and long-term goals?
Sure, Jeanette, and thank you for that question. So, I mean, first I want to say thank you to CWT Ricky as well as Aviva. They are all part of the ecosystem as well of the CO2 Connect platform. So coming back, right, I think Ricky has said the right word. Again, playbook. There isn't a playbook, which is exactly the reason. When we first sat down as three different companies, we saw that there were three very unique technology that could be put together onto a platform offering. Ascend's strength is in IoT. IoT in collecting data, collecting real-time accurate data that could now be put into what we call a sustainability calculator that is owned by Evercom, which will be able to give us, again, a real-time AI-based, all right, an ISO-related standard to calculate the carbon footprint. And once that's done, eventually we could now use STACS blockchain engine so that, to future-proof the aspect that, if I need to buy, so-called carbon credit, I need to trade REITs, or I need to now be able to sell some of my carbon credit. There's a component there that allows all these results to be kept in the non-fungible token within a wallet itself. So coming back to the whole strategy of how we came up with, CO2 Connect as a platform. Again, right, I've always gone back to the story of how we feel that SME needs a lot of help. SME today, unlike maybe the bigger companies, they couldn't afford this annual or biannual snapshot carbon footprint so-called evaluation test to be done, says by bigger consulting companies. And by the way, each consulting companies, when they do come in and look at the carbon footprint of, say, your fleet, they tend to do so for a very high fee, right? And for that fee, you will get a snapshot to say, hey, I have these 100 trucks. Your 100 trucks is emitting so much of carbon, and your carbon footprint is as such. But let's not forget the fact that the minute that's done, you're already capturing again a snapshot of that instant where the consultants comes in and look at the carbon footprint of the fleet, right? So out there, to the best of our knowledge, there isn't an engine that constantly collect the carbon footprint of what's happening to the fleet of 100. That is able to now bring it to an online platform to do real-time calculations. So that if today, as an example, I need to prove to the likes of my insurance like Aviva to say that I'm carbon aware, I know how much, against last year, I've actually reduced so much of carbon, so that the insurance company can say, fine, we can actually offer you a certain percentage of a discount, because the truth is, by going green, by being carbon aware, indirectly, drivers have to do some part of the act together. A driver's got to drive better. What do I mean by that? When you're at a dock bay waiting for the bay to be available, so what do some drivers do? They keep the engine running for 2 hours while waiting for the dock bay to be available. And that 2 hours, you are emitting huge amount of carbon dioxide. And for what? For the reason of being comfortable with their aircon, for the reasons of watching YouTube, right? So that you can sit comfortably to watch the YouTube. And because your driving behavior, the same truck driven by 2 different drivers could emit different amount of CO2. One will have abrupt acceleration, abrupt braking, very abruptly right turning. So all these are going to be contributor of CO2. So having said that, if they are able to now watch how they drive, take care of the whole so-called carbon footprint journey for every single truck, a driver indirectly is putting at his hand, right, the ability of being able to contribute his part to the environment. If you empower them to do so, they realize that by now driving better, I help the company save on fuel. Indirectly, I could now also be less reckless. Henceforth, the company can now gain from the standpoint of getting cheaper insurance. So on the other aspect is that if I'm a fleet owner today, and I do have a mixed fleet, what comes to mind about going green is that everybody will jump at it to say that, okay, let's electrify. I want as many electric vans, as many electric trucks, although these electric trucks are still very expensive. And the ecosystem to support them, while we have a 2030 plan, it's still going to take a bit of time before we get there. So unfortunately, right, we will still have quite a few years of combustion engine on the road, and it will still continue to be the 3rd largest emitter of CO2. So in order for me to understand my fleet of, say, CNG, diesel, petrol, electric, and to begin with, our electric is also not exactly green. When you're buying off the grid, there's a certain percentage of carbon footprint. If you're buying it off from REC, of course, it is, a lot more green. Then all this becomes the complexity that goes into the calculation of what the carbon footprint entails. Now, think of what I've just said. It is like, oh my goodness, mind-boggling. So now you try and now bring all these equation and formula to an SME and say, do your own calculation. None of them will know what to do. That's the truth. To begin with, some don't even track their truck fleet. So right now, what we're saying, therefore, is that we've taken away all the complexity. We make it so simple. We simplify the whole concept of, at the press of a button, we like that you understand your carbon footprint out of an automated AI platform, where all this complexity that is compliant to say the ISO 14064-1 part of the calculation, -2 part of it from an organization standpoint, what it means, and then eventually, like what you correctly mentioned, right? We will use all these itself to say that how we could actually, be, verified by various standards out there in the market, such that this carbon footprint can be equated to carbon credit loads. I'm sorry, I think I've said a lot.
Thank you for that.
Clarify.
Yes. It does, it does. I think it's it's indeed very exciting, to see how CO2 Connect will definitely unravel over time and empower various ecosystem partners. STACS ourselves are very happy to, be part of this whole joint venture in using our blockchain platform as the ESG registry, and also very happy to have CO2 Connect as part of Greenprint actually, which we will actually be releasing a PR tomorrow. So do keep a lookout for that to the audiences on this panel. Actually, moving on to JingLong, I would like to pose you this question on firstly the fact that Aviva is actually committed to sustainability and being one of the more proactive insurers in Singapore is something that is very impressive. But when people think of insurance, like you've mentioned before just now, you did say that we tend to imagine it as a means to protect corporates and individuals against risks, rather than it being a main tool to aid transitioning to green or sustainability. So maybe you could take us through exactly how sustainability fits in the insurance space, and what are the main defining or differentiating factors between a green motor insurance and a non-green motor insurance?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, as mentioned, insurance it's a risk transfer business, and then for insurers like us, I think most insurers in the world, one of the key elements that we do is to understanding the risk, and then what we call underwriting. So essentially, what that means is we're using different data points to understand the risk as much as possible and as accurate as possible. Now, traditionally, what happened is most of the data, take example for the motor insurance. The information that we've been using is what we can call a fixed information after the fact. So basically, it's either the driver's profile, so your age, your driving histories, etc., and then plus the vehicle informations. But the vehicle information I'm talking about here is also the after fact. The vehicle models, that's not going to change, and then your capacity, engine capacity, that's not going to change. So we rely on those information to understanding the risk. Therefore, we price accordingly. Now, what has been changing is through these sustainability initiatives. So the company from the CO2, so with their technology, so they are able to capture the information that we were not be able to capture before. And then those informations we're talking about is actually related to the systemic activities, the drivers or the corporates that they've been doing. And then those information is actually coming through these technology platforms. For example, like CK mentioned, the people driving, when they're waiting in the idle time, are they turning off the engines or they're not turning on the engines? I mean, when they're changing lanes, how fast do they do that? So this is what we call the driver's behaviors. Now, this information is actually very critical because that actually gives another angle of how the risk profile it is. But traditionally, we were not be able to do that. Largely one thing is because technologies, the other thing is other factors. But nowadays, I think we have opportunities working with private parties to harness the information. So for us, we're able to develop a new side of products. And then the outcome clearly is to using that to encourage and then the ending consumers to continue the good behaviors or even do more, for example. So therefore, that's basically how to answer your questions, how the sustainability coming through from the insurance perspective. And then the way we incentivize to encourage them clearly, essentially, is coming down to the transfer into the premiums. So then they will be understanding, okay, if they behave certain ways, then there will be premiums incentivized. That, again, is premium just one of the methods to incentivize, but the outcome that we wanted to do is to drive that behavior change.
Great, thanks for that. I think it's very interesting how that we see insurance actually fitting in this whole piece very nicely. The fact that we can use insurance products to actually incentivize the prolonging of sustainability efforts, it will be something that's very useful, especially for new corporates who are questioning the whole transitioning to green kind of effort. So thank you for sharing, JingLong. To Ricky now, CWT has also made the decision to go green through your commitment and interest in CO2 Connect, which thank you very much and also very impressive. However, you also did say something that was very correct, that there is no playbook in the transport and logistics sector. It's still very gray, a gray area, and it's very brown. Logically, we've also imagined that in fleet management, unless your fleet is completely electrical, it's not actually naturally green. So it can make it slightly difficult for most small and medium enterprises, like CK has also mentioned just now, to make a change, especially due to, let's say, high costs and maybe low availability of electric charging ports. So my question to you, Ricky, is that firstly, what was CWT's motivation in taking up this challenge of transitioning to green? And what are some other ways besides electrifying your vehicles for the TNL sector to really make this transition to sustainability?
Thank you. So first and foremost, the motivation I think is very clear. It's about sustainability. It's about the future. Is what I said earlier. We have just one Earth. And transport and logistics itself, like what we highlighted, we are the third in a row that we are the one that created a lot of carbon footprint. So are we not going to do anything now? Or should we be doing something? And all of us know that there's a plan in Singapore, the vision of running 2040 vision of having clean energy by then. But all being said, a lot of emphasis are driving on the passenger vehicle than the trucks itself. Even in terms of invention or in terms of availability of electric vehicle right now, there's many brands out there already have an electric vehicle long ago. But then what about electric trucks? So until today, I mean, a lot of player, even Tesla, many others, Sony itself is trying to come up with electric truck itself. But many a time, because all these trucks are big and we carry cargo that is heavy, many a time you require a lot of energy, which means that the battery will be very big. So till today, the maximum are talking about 200 kilometers before they can need a recharge. But then against a diesel engine, talking about 500 to 600 kilometers for a refueling itself. So a lot of planning will be in place to recharge this vehicle itself. So how in the future is going to happen? So from our perspective right now is that although there's like the road in front is very rocky, but then we still need to do something. So what should we be doing? Like I said earlier, transport and logistics, we come into the field where a lot of gray area is there. Not many books on that, not many theory on that. And it's very complex issue to do a logistic work itself because we involve a lot of stakeholders. Okay, for container logistics itself, we start from the port itself, the container itself went into the truck may go into the factory, may go into warehouses, subsequently when it's empty, will go to the container depot and vice versa. So it's just simple container itself, which is the major packing of any goods itself. It's already hit through 3 or 4 different logistic nodes itself. So it's not just about the starting point to be green or ending point to be more aware of carbon footprint. It's the whole route itself. And how can we understand that while we're trying to do something good, it's good enough? So a lot of time we're talking about baseline study. So until today, there's no theory on baseline. Say, for example, trucks itself, we got starting from Euro 4 engine to Euro 6 engine right now. So sometime back, many years back, when I started some initiative for the industry, I did a study on the Euro 4 engine. The Euro 4 engine at idling per hour, they are spending 2 liters of fuel, doing nothing. Idling means there's no load, do nothing, just probably the driver listening to the radio or the aircon, waiting down there is 2 liters of fuel, doing nothing. So, but when you say Euro 4 engine, 2 liter not doing anything, what it mean to us? Yeah, as a businesses, you think that 2 liter means 1 liter, $2, 2 liter, $4 kind of thing. But it's more than that. How can it harm the environment? What CO2 or other additive or emission is out there that is harming the environment? We are actually not aware. Although we may know that Euro 4 emit this kind of data, but at the different idling, at different load itself, Is there a math behind all this or science behind it to tell us that when I do this trip, what carbon footprint we're talking about? So we are thrown into action when CK come to us. I think it's about time we set a baseline. And I myself been involved in standard. I've been chairing the standard committee for a while. I thought that it should have a standard. It should have a baseline. We should have something that we know that we did better, a scorecard kind of thing. Say for doing this job from point A to point B by using a Euro 4 engine from point A to point B, what carbon footprint we're talking about? What emission we're talking about? Can we do better? In today's context, we don't know, actually. We can best guess based on the time we spend, the mileage we use and things like that. But is it the best equipment fit for this job? When I can probably use a Euro 6 engine because this container is heavier or this cargo is heavier, I use something that is having a higher horsepower, is probably help to reduce a carbon footprint because it's no load on the engine itself. So it's a lot of math and science behind all these that we a lot unknown for a logistic player like us. So we hope that the platform of CO2 Connect itself can give us some data, a baseline itself, so that we know, are we doing better? And also, are we doing this job in the right manner? So it's a lot of technology plus understanding, a lot of culture behind this. Do we understand that this particular driver drive faster, or he have a happy right leg or right foot, that he always be revving the engine for no apparent reason and always stop and can start revving and start accelerating and been affecting the overall carbon footprint? This actually we don't know. It's that we can only tell from a certain platform is that from point A to point A he's spending so long over there because of traffic condition and things like that. But the actual carbon footprint, the actual behind the scene, the emission itself, we really do not know. It may be because it drives faster, it become better. I wouldn't know. It drives slower, maybe it will be better. I also would not know. So we need a baseline out there, an understanding of by having this vehicle, having this load traveling from point A to point B, or should I use a highway and it become less use on the emission and things like that? We really do not know. So it's very critical that from now till then, on electrifying the trucks itself, even at the point of time in the end state that we have an electric vehicle, the whole thing appeared to be the same. The whole ball game appeared to be the same. Why? You still need to charge your battery. Are you going to point A to point B to charge your battery and keep charging because this driver itself is so happy with the right leg and he keep buzzing every now and then, or he like to go around Singapore a few rounds before he go into the destination? So it's still bound down to about collecting your data, having a baseline. When you do this job, what carbon footprint we're talking about? Can we do better? Should we be using a higher capacity engine or lower capacity engine, or what should we do? Should we have two containers to save time and carbon footprint to go together, or should we have one? So it's a lot of study behind this, which I keep saying that there's no book on that. So it's all we ourselves to have a baseline. From there, study with the fleet management to understand how we manage and choose the right tools for the right job itself, and also to reduce the carbon footprint. So it's about baseline, it's about standardization, it's about known. So I believe all of us, not just the management, I believe each and every one of us understand in terms of environment right now. I mean, news are there and things are there talking about environment every now and then. Now the major leader are meeting and things. People understand, but I believe everyone want to do their part. Even my driver, I believe so. Nobody are born to want to harm the environment. I believe so. But it's that we are very ignorant, or there's no measure for us to tell that did I do better or not. Not like you go to school, you score, you get 100 marks, you're very good, you're 50, you're not so good and things like that. There's no scorecard. So how I know in my perspective as a driver, I want to do great for the environment, what should I do? Should I idle and drive slowly at 50 km per hour, or I should be doing 40 km per hour, or the fleet management itself to assign a higher load vehicle or lower load vehicle, or should I have a like midway have an exchange that people in Changi don't come all the way to the Tua don't go all the way to the Changi. So it's a lot of planning. It's just not about emission, it's about planning. Even in the future, we have electric vehicle, is still planning. It still have some form of emission somewhere because you still need some energy to charge your battery. So we have to start somewhere itself to get a baseline to move forward. That's prompt us CWT itself and to help to get into the industry to move forward with this sustainability.
You've
Yeah.
actually made many good points. Actually, it's basically identifying what we don't know in order to actually take on a better action, or to strategize around being more sustainable. And I think it also ties in very nicely what you talk about with regards to data. I think data is something that is definitely one of the main drivers in every industry or even in any business, which also JingLong actually covered just now when he was talking about creating new insurance products to basically de-risk and also enhance the incentives for sustainability. And I'm pretty sure that CO2 Connect can actually help in many ways. You also mentioned something on baseline and standards, which is something that is also very important, because without all these standards, all the corporates are not able to have a benchmark of which their current strategies can be used against, so that they know whether they're actually producing the correct actions. So on this note, ESG certifications and standards are something that is actually very important, and it's something that a lot of businesses still struggle to actually understand and pinpoint, which one am I supposed to follow, etc. Because there's the problem of fragmentation, and there's a lot of standards out there. And so to this question, maybe I can pose this to CK first. How exactly does CO2 Connect actually help its partners in the area of certification and standards? You did mention, data analytics and AI. Perhaps you can dive a little bit deeper on that with regards to the certifications.
Sure. I think again, right, going back to this whole concept of playbook when there's no playbook. So where do we start? I believe that there are some baseline understanding, but again, baselines tend not to dwell too much into details. So today, there are definitely standards out there that is trying to govern the whole calculation. An example would be ISO 14064. So -1 in particular is a standard that allows you to now understand how do I calculate the carbon footprint of my fleet. And again, right, a Euro 4, Euro 5, Euro 6, the different grade of fuel they use, it may be diesel. Construction equipment diesel grades are also very low. So each and every one of these will now be utilized, and we could really use the standard in itself to tell us through the CO2 Connect platform to say that with so much fuel use, with so many kilometers of driving, with so much of engine idling time, and how much of it is due to a rough acceleration and a rough deceleration, which is braking. All these will go into a complex mathematics, which is going to be certified by on CO2 Connect platform itself. Again, with so-called an international consultant that will now say that, okay, whatever is calculated is really truly compliant with the ISO standard, or for that matter, GRI standard. And then using that itself, whatever certifications that we're generating, the data in itself will be used to validate against, say, some international standard like Vera. Vera is capable of telling you that, okay, if this is the method and the way you've used, you can now qualify that this amount that you're saying is really carbon credit. And therefore, we could go into a CIX itself to even exchange this, as if we have carbon credit to exchange it and sell it for. So I think we are some, time away from achieving that. But nonetheless, everything starts with collecting data. The ability to collect the data, put it into a known calculator, and then generating the outcome, having it certified now internationally by all the recognized association and standards council, will now allow us to so-called be accorded with the highest level of standards with regards to carbon recognition itself. Some good points that were brought up in the early discussion, right, by JingLong and Ricky. Actually, one thing that got me into wanting to start this whole CO2 Connect is also part of this whole aspect of being responsible and our social responsibility for the planet. It really, kind of like puzzled me when I realized that a simple 30-kilometer trip, 30, right? We're not talking a lot, going from West Coast all the way to Changi Airport. Do you know that we're emitting a few kilograms of carbon dioxide? Which shocks me, right? When I first put it through the calculator and when I saw the results, I say, wow, I didn't know we're harming the earth so much. So, our joyride sometimes is creating very bad negative effect. So this in itself is the motivations behind, right, the whole, getting the whole CO2 Connect started. I also want to urge, the audience and to also, if you are available this afternoon, do dial in, right? I believe the session is at 3 p.m. where, my colleagues and, are going to show you guys live what CO2 Connect platform is going to be all about. You're going to be able to see firsthand how we're collecting drivers' data, drivers' behavioral data, right? Mileage-related information, fuel data, and how all these will now go into a CO2 Connect dashboard and platform, where then subsequently how all the generated information could be tokenized to NFT itself to be residing onto a Trident platform, which is from STACS. And all of this is going to be put together as CO2 Connect as a platform. Today, CO2 Connect, in fact, is made up of 3 vertically already very successful systems. The one from SN, we are also a partner of CDAS and CWT, where we are providing fleet management system. Right, the one from his Evercom is also an award-winning and an ESG, so-called scale-up company. And STACS has got an award-winning, MES award-winning platform as well. So I think putting all 3 together, right, becomes a very exciting thing that we could do with regards to sustainability, right, especially for supply chain. Thanks, Jeanette. Yeah.
Thank you, CK. Very, very wholesome sharing there. Yes, to the audience, we will be having a CO2 Connect platform demo later at 3 p.m. As CK has kindly raised. So on the same question, basically, ESG certifications and standards, maybe I'd like to ask a question to JingLong as well. So how are insurers like Aviva, Singlife taking note of the sector-specific ESG certifications and standards in the makeup of the new green motor insurance products? Are there any difficulties in incorporating so many different sector-specific standards?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I think we're still in the early time of our journey, but I think it's having a standard in general is very good, because actually it will make things much easier and more convincing. For example, for the corporate or for the drivers, rather than they say, okay, this is score, that's your score. How did you come up? How do I trust it? And why? I think I'm good. I think I'm a better driver. Why you say I got a lower score, so on and so forth. So I think industry standard definitely will help in this situation. I think for us, we just in the process finding ways to understanding a little bit more and then finding ways to incorporate it into our product development, because a motor insurance product is pretty complex. We already have, in general, there's like 20, 30 different pricing factors, actually, basically different elements actually affecting the pricing. And then it's a complex, what we call the pricing model to run it, to determine the price. So now we're adding more, another additional layer, this ESG layer into it. So clearly we wanted to make sure we get it right. And then We don't want to just rush out something and then come out something that we think it makes sense, but actually it doesn't make sense to the consumers. We have to understand exactly how they behave. Sometimes, if that behavior we expected, is that really feasible to them or not? So I think that's another layer of the feasibility on top of just the hardcore data that we need to build in. But to answer your question simply, I think the standard definitely is something we're looking forward to. And then we're still in the process to incorporate that. But I think it will be something very, very interesting coming out of it. Yeah, looking forward to that. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, in the interest of time, we have actually 15 minutes left on the panel. So to the audience, if you have any questions that you would like to ask our speakers, please feel free to type them into the box on the right-hand screen, gray section of your screen. And I'll just continue asking questions to the panelists until a question pops up. So, okay, to all of you, going forward, do you actually see the carrot or the stick being the most useful driver for behavioral change towards sustainability? JingLong was mentioning that, insurance can be an incentive. What are the possibilities of it being a penalty? How do corporates like a CWT on Ricky's end view these different penalties or incentives? And as for CK, what do you think, just individually, what do you think, a carrot or a stick is better for behavioral change? Anyone can start.
I do first.
Okay.
I believe it's always a balance. I mean, this thing is as good as how you're teaching your kids. You cane too much, they run away. Okay? You sang too much, give too much, they get complacent. Like long ago, there's one gentleman tell me something in a Mandarin way. They said you have a bird on the hand, you hold too tight, the bird may die. You let go too much, the bird will fly away. So I believe it's always a balance itself. I believe, and many of us is a parent already. To manage this, I think is a walk in the park. Is how to balance between the carrot and the stick. Seriously. And things like that. And we must always understand another portion is that, especially I want to speak on for logistics, container logistics itself. Like I highlight earlier, we do not have an electric truck per se in any near future that is really workable till now in Singapore. Yeah, we see a lot of electric passenger vehicle. So from now to then, how are we going to set the target by when we're going to have all change the fleet to become electric trucks itself? I think not many people can answer this. Electric passenger vehicle, yes, we can say 2030, everybody can go in. 2030, can we go and have everyone have electric truck itself? And next thing is also many of the logistic players are SME, brick and mortar itself. And their truck are carrying diesel. How actually we help them to convert? Are we going to like set a rule by then? No such thing. No diesel truck anymore? Or what are we going to do? So it's a lot of balancing act over there as we move on. We encourage after CO2 Connect come out, it probably helped a lot of us already. And from there, we have a baseline. We see from there what is our scorecard. We think that, hey, 50% of the industry have done well. And from there, should we cane the balance 50% or give more carrot to the 50%? And until then we can have deep understanding to the whole environment, the whole sustainability. We wouldn't know the answer. And logistics per se, like I highlight, is that we involve numerous stakeholders. You can't do yourself. You cannot be just CWT itself, be very sustainable, be very less carbon footprint and things like that. Don't forget we have vendor. It's like we got customer. Say for argument's sake, I reuse my pallet. I use it for my customer. The customer, when you send to the customer, say, oh, why you use a used pallet? Why don't you use a new one? So you must be cheating me. So it's a lot of mindset changes. Is it so old, new? Is it so new? So standardization, awareness, baseline education have to be an ongoing task, and we should start not now but yesterday to make sure things are we can get in time for the ride. So yeah, thanks.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. JingLong, you want to go? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Yeah, I think the balancing is critical. I mean, I'm still finding the right balance for my 2 years old at home. I know exactly what you're talking about. I suppose besides the balance thing, I think we really need other layers. We need to really understand what's the situation on the ground, and especially the SMEs, including large corporates, because people behaving the way they behave for certain reasons, and then so I think we just need to take that into consideration, make sure either incentivize or penalty that actually people look at it, they understand, okay, yeah, actually it makes sense. You understand my situation, so your solution actually it makes sense to me. Rather than people look at it, they say, hey, you guys don't really know what you're talking about. You just designing something from 3,000 feet above. So I think to me that's another key point. Yeah, that came to my mind. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank
so
you.
I think the thing that come to mind when we started CO2 Connect is the fact that it has got to be an ecosystem kind of play. It can't be the fact that you go to an SME today and say that, hey, you need to pay so much money to track your carbon footprint. And the SME is going to stand blank and says, but what does it do for me? All right. Besides being just socially responsible to the fact that I understand what my fleet is doing with carbon, can it help really to reduce carbon? That's one. Second question they're going to have is that there's no form of savings and no punishment yet out there for me today. My drivers drive the same way. I still pump the same amount of petrol. So what's that? So why I say it's an ecosystem standpoint is that to the extent that let's start off from the standpoint that when the drivers start to understand that they're being tracked for carbon footprint, to some extent they will say, okay, I'm doing for social good. And besides being socially responsible, I'm saving the company money. Why do I say that? Like what Ricky said, keeping the truck idling while waiting at the dock bay, you're burning fuel. Company burns money. You think of it that, some of the worst hours we have seen is like, hundreds of hours of idling per month per truck. Multiply that by 100 trucks and multiply that by the 2 liter that Ricky talks about. It's a huge amount of money. So we started seeing that just on fuel alone, by being CO2 aware, companies can save almost 10 to 15% of fuel. That is already an ecosystem thing to say that while you're paying to track, you are already grabbing the benefit of fuel saving. That's one. Second thing, because the drivers are driving, more carefully, they are more discreet about how they are doing, lane switching and everything. Indirectly, from Aviva's standpoint, okay, we will give you a certain amount of discount to the insurance. That's the second system, ecosystem, aspect of it. Then, coming back to the other aspect, it is not overnight that all the fleets are going to go electrified, right? To Ricky's point, you are still going to have, maybe to some extent, you're going to try some electrical vans or maybe some, low tonnage truck, but not 100% switch. Then, how would the banks continue to come in and say, I can offer you a green loan? Banks are looking at SLL, sustainability linked loan. They are looking from the fact that you are carbon aware. You have actually shown me from reports that by being carbon aware, your fleet has achieved some form of carbon reduction. By doing so, I can also grant you SLL, sustainability linked loan. And because of that, again, it's an ecosystem play. So to me, there are many aspects of win. And of course, the biggest carrot, right, to offset against says, the stick itself, is the fact that if in the very near future, we start having to pay carbon tax. And carbon tax has got to be calculated carbon tax. Today, they are probably going to start off by saying, this engine capacity, this truck, type, Euro what, engine capacity what, they slap a carbon footprint on that. But without knowing that, hey, at the end of the day, I may be Euro 4, same truck, driven by driver A and B. There's a huge difference. My carbon emissions are not the same. So how do we then get to the point of qualifying for that? And if we can, and the standards that we say is like calculated through a CO2 Connect platform, is able to now allow company to go to tax authority to say, hey, I didn't emit so much carbon, right? I have now a certified, certificate that says that my truck only emitted so much. Can you give me a reduction of the, carbon tax? And if the answer is yes, then this again is an ecosystem play. So to me, there are many wins on many fronts. So I don't see CO2 to be a platform that we didn't start from an onset of, the platform wanting to make money, but we came from a standpoint of, doing what is socially right? Yeah. Our social responsibility, and from the ESG standpoint. So I think on that front, clearly, I agree that we got to look at it from a holistic view, and even a company like Aviva is part of our entire ecosystem. So one would argue that Aviva, your fleet is entirely electrical. Why do you even bother to go into CO2? You already don't have carbon. That's not true, because with an EV5, again, different driver A, driver B will choose to drive differently. And let's not forget that our grid that supplies electricity is not green to begin with in Singapore, right?
That's true.
So with EV5, the complications comes that they have part of it that is provided by a solar system that supply into the grid. A certain percentage is coming green under REC. A certain percentage is coming from grid. And for a company to now say, if I really want to calculate carbon footprint of my electrical vehicle, how do I do it? I think it's also just as interesting that CO2 Connect is really looking at this from a very holistic angle.
Yeah. So the key here is really, yes, thank you so much. The key here is really balance, and I think I picked that up from all the answers the three of the speakers here have given us. In the interest of time, we only have 3 minutes left. There are no questions, so I will be wrapping up the session. A lot has been shared throughout the session, and I think it gives me a better idea, of how much each player here is essential in this game of going sustainable. And the highlight of this session to me was really how each of you, view sustainability, and how you view it from the perspectives or the glasses of each of your industries. And it also changed my perspectives on how technology and data will always be the key core at the forefront of change. On this note, may I have each of you to give me a 30-second of what you feel was the key element or highlight of this session, and what do you find was most interesting? 30 seconds. Maybe we can have Ricky first.
Ricky, you can take all the time.
I think critically, like I keep ponder about ourselves is that responsibility. I mean, I keep repeating, we just have one Earth. If we don't do anything, or who is going to do it? It's not me, then who? I mean, this is not the time where you're looking at each other, trying to not to have eye contact, you first or me first. We do it. I think we should do it. Everyone should do it. I think we should participate and make sure we do it well and be responsible and be sustainable. Especially, there's a lot of study, a lot of things out there already show how harmful the environment will be when we have all these emission and things like that. I thought that this best takeaway is that I think three of us, not just three of us, many other stakeholders in the logistics should come together as a whole ecosystem. Let's do it together. Let's hold hand together and watch each other back and make sure we can continue this journey, and not just for us, for our children and next generation to go on. And you can see, and we must always understand one fact, especially true for Singapore. We are island. Look around us. Anything that is made in Singapore, anyone, look at your table, nothing. So if we don't have logistics, why is Singapore? Do we have food source? We got any other thing, your clothing and things like that? So it means that this is an evergreen trade, especially in logistics. So in order to continue this evergreen trade and continue Singapore to be in the correct position in terms of the world logistic hub and things like that, what should we do? We need to be sustainable. We need to be responsible, and it should start from us. And it's us that is really important to make sure this thing happens. I think that is very critical, especially so for Singapore, island city itself. Yeah.
Thank you, Ricky. Maybe JingLong, you can go next. What did you find most interesting or intriguing of the session today? Can wrap up soon.
Hello, Jeanette. I don't think I can hear you.
Oh, sorry. As in, what do you think was the most interesting or intriguing of the session? 30 seconds wrap up. Can you hear me? Or maybe CK can go first.
Yeah, JingLong seems to be having some trouble here.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we're out of time, but I really think that the most important message right now is that, we really, the time is now, act now. I don't think, we have a lot of time, left. And we need to take on the responsibility of doing the right thing. Yeah. Okay, I believe we are over our session, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, all the speakers over here for your time, and also for the audience. I think we've had a really great session. We had about 50 plus participants in this panel. So to the audience, should you wish to contact our panelists, you can actually find their LinkedIn contacts via their profiles in the panel description. Alternatively, if any of you are interested to find out more about CO2 Connect or express your interest in registering for the pilot or even to for our services, do head to www.co2connect.com, or you can email us at hello@co2connect.com. So have a great week, everyone. Thank you for your time, and I'll be ending the session now.
Thanks, Jeanette. Thanks, Ricky.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.